to use your TI-84 graphing calculator. Hopefully by the end of this lesson, you'll have a better idea of how to use some of the basic functions, but there's a lot more that this graphing calculator can do that we won't be discussing today. But as we move through the school year, you'll learn more and more about this calculator and some of its various functions. So I'm going to be just demonstrating a lot of this. So if you could have your graphing calculator out so that you could type in these problems with me, that will help you rather than just watching me do it. Helps if you actually are typing things in as well. So first, we're going to just start with some basic operations and how to type those into the graphing calculator. So go ahead and grab your graphing calculator, and I am going to grab my graphing calculator. And in your graphing calculator, so the first one, we're just going to type in 12. So the numbers are here in white. So I'm going to type in 12. And then the plus and minus, division, multiplication signs are on the right-hand side in gray. So plus 15. And then divided by 3 minus 6 times 4. The equal sign is the enter. So just hit enter anytime you want to figure out what it equals, and you end up with -7. So on my notes, I'm going to go back and I'm going to write -7 as that final answer. So there really isn't any work to show for these problems because we're using our graphing calculator to do all of the work. The next problem talks about parentheses and brackets. So in your graphing calculator, it's helpful to when you're typing in something with brackets, change those brackets into parentheses. So instead of typing brackets into the graphing calculator, we're just going to change those into parentheses. And it's also important that you type everything in exactly as it's written out. Otherwise, you may not get the correct answer. So hit clear in the right-hand corner above this little caret button to clear out anything to get ready for your next equation. So for this one, we are going to type a parenthesis instead of a bracket. And then negative sign is right here in the white below the 3. So it would be -2. And then parenthesis is right above the 8. And then 7 plus 1, close the parenthesis, minus 20 divided by 4, and then instead of a bracket, we're just going to close it with a parenthesis. Now, one thing to note is that in the graphing calculator, the negative sign is different than the minus sign. So if you mix up a negative and a minus sign, you may get the wrong answer. So just be careful when you are typing things in. Don't use the minus and the negative sign interchangeably because they are different. Okay, so when I go ahead and hit enter, I end up getting -21 as my answer. So I'm going to go back to my notes and write -21. Okay, the next problem involves exponents. So for exponents, you're going to use this little caret button to put an exponent into your graphing calculator. Okay, so if we go back to our graphing calculator, again, I'm going to clear this out. And then I'm going to type a parenthesis, 11 minus 5, close the parenthesis, and now I want to raise this to the second power. So to put in an exponent, you click on this caret button here, and that will raise it to an exponent, and it's to the second power. Now to get out of the exponent, you have to hit the right-hand arrow to get down. Otherwise, you're going to continue to be in the exponent part. Okay, then I have -4 parenthesis 3 plus 2, close the parenthesis, and again, hit enter for equals. I got 16 for that answer, and that is the correct answer, so 16. Next, we're going to talk about how to type in a square root into the graphing calculator. So if we go back to the calculator, I'm going to hit clear. To get a square root symbol, you type the second button, which is this blue button here in the upper left-hand corner, second. And then right above the x squared, you'll notice in blue, there's a square root. So because I hit the second button, now it's going to give me whatever's in blue on these buttons here. So hit the x squared button to get that square root symbol, and then I'm going to type in 4, and then I got to raise that to the second power. So I can either hit this caret button, or if it's just to the second power, you can also hit the x squared button, but that will only give you to the second power. And then next I have to type in plus 38 minus parenthesis 3 plus 2, close the parenthesis, and then hit equals. And I end up getting 7 as my final answer. So I'm going to go back to my notes and type in or put 7 as that final answer. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about how to type in absolute value bars. So absolute value bars are a little bit more challenging. So again, it has the steps below if you ever want to refer back to what I'm doing. But I'm going to demonstrate right now with you. So I'm going to clear everything out, and then I'm going to type the number 2 in, and now I need an absolute value bar. So to get absolute value bars, you have to start by clicking this math button. Math is below the green alpha button, and then you have to hit the right-hand arrow to get to where it says NUM. So hit the right-hand arrow, and then you'll notice the first option is ABS, which stands for absolute value bars. So hit enter to select the absolute value bars, and now you'll see them on your screen. So now I need to type 5 minus 18 divided by 2. And then I have to get outside of the absolute value bars. So to get outside of them, you hit the right-hand arrow and then plus 3. So just make sure your plus 3 is outside of the absolute value bars. And notice I accidentally hit the plus sign twice. So to delete something, just go back and highlight it and hit this delete button. And then now I have it typed in the correct way. So hit enter, and I end up getting positive 11 as the answer for the absolute value problem. So going back to my notes, I'm going to put 11 as that final answer. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is how to type a fraction into your graphing calculator. So go back to the graphing calculator. I'm going to clear everything out. And then if I want to get a fraction in the calculator, you can click on this green alpha button, and then you can click on the y equals button. This is going to bring up the fraction menu. So option number 1 is just if you want to type in any fraction. Option 2 is if you want to type in a mixed number. Option number 3 is if you want to convert from an improper fraction to a mixed number or vice versa. And so we're just going to select option number 1 because we're just typing in a fraction. So in the numerator, I'm going to type 5 and then parenthesis 4 plus 3, close the parenthesis, and then to get to the denominator, you just hit the down arrow. So now I'm in the denominator, and I'm going to type in 12 minus 7, and then hit equals. And that reduces to 7. So I'm going to go back to my notes. I'm going to put 7 in as that final answer. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is how your calculator can convert from a decimal into a fraction. So if we go back to our graphing calculator, I'm going to clear this out. And if you are given a decimal, the first thing I'm going to type is the decimal. So I have 0.26. And I want to convert that into a fraction. So to convert it into the fraction, you're going to click on this math button. And then the first option here says fraction, so that will convert it into a fraction. So you just hit enter and then hit enter one more time. And so 0.26 equals 13 over 50. So if I go back to my notes, I'm going to write 13 over 50 as my final answer. We can also do the reverse. So we can convert a fraction into a decimal. So if we look at number 8, going back to the calculator, I'm going to clear this out. And then I need to type in the fraction 3 over 5. So remember to type in a fraction, you click alpha and then y equals and then enter. And then I'm going to type in 3 and then hit the down arrow, 5. And then I'm going to hit the right-hand arrow just to get out of the fraction. And now I want to convert it into a decimal. So to convert it into a decimal, I'm going to click on the math button. And option number 2 says decimal. So hit the down arrow to decimal and then hit enter and enter one more time, and it converts it into a decimal for you. So I'm going to go back to my notes, and 3/5 is equal to 0.6 as a decimal. Next, we're going to talk about how to convert from a percent into a decimal. So if we want to change 18% into a decimal, the quickest way to do that is just to divide your percent by 100. So I'm going to take 18 and just divide it by 100 and hit equals. Okay, so that's what 18% is equivalent to as a decimal. So again, I'm going to go back here and do 0.18. So that's 18% as a decimal. So if we want to go in the other direction, if we want to convert from a decimal into a percent, we're going to multiply by 100 instead of divide by 100. So 0.92, or I'm sorry, 0.092. So I'm going to start by typing in 0.092 and then hit times 100 to convert it into a percentage. So 0.092 as a percentage would be 9.2%. Now let's practice some examples that you may see used throughout the school year in your algebra class. So the first example is number 11, and this one involves using brackets. Remember that instead of using brackets in the graphing calculator, I just like to replace these with parentheses. So go ahead and grab your graphing calculator, and then let's do this problem along with me. Oops. Okay. In your graphing calculator, we're going to start by typing 12 and then plus 2. Instead of a bracket, the parenthesis button is right above the 8. So it'd be parenthesis 18 minus 3, and then close the parentheses. And then hit enter, and you end up with 42 as that final answer. So that would be my final answer for number 11. In number 12, this involves using fractions. So again, let's go back to our graphing calculators and let's clear out the old equation. And to get a fraction button, you're going to click on the alpha, the green alpha button, and then the y equals button in the top left. You should see this menu and then hit enter to get your fraction. So it says 2/3, hit the down arrow to type in your denominator. So 2/3 and then times, and then I'm going to do alpha y equals and enter again. Times 1/5, and then hit the right hand arrow to get out of the fraction, and then minus, and then again alpha y equals enter 2/9. And then if you hit enter, it gives you your answer as a fraction. So -4/45 would be the final answer here. Okay, then in number 13, it wants you to convert a decimal into a percentage. So remember from the notes above, first you're going to type in the decimal, which is 0.06. And then to change that into a percentage, you just multiply it by 100. So this comes out to 6%. In number 14, let's practice using an exponent button and then the square root button. So again, go back to your graphing calculator, and then to get a square root button, you have to hit the blue second button and then the x squared button, which is about 1, 2, 3 buttons below alpha. So you get the square root of 25 minus 4, and then to raise it to an exponent, you can either hit the caret button, which is above the division symbol, and then put a 2 in there, or a shortcut to getting a squared is just to hit, again, the x squared button. So you could do it either way. And then once I hit enter, I end up getting 3 as my final answer for that one. Number 15, let's practice converting a fraction into a decimal. So again, I'm going to go back to my graphing calculator and I'm going to type in the fraction. So I'm going to hit the alpha y equal button and then enter. Type in 1/8. And then I'm going to hit the right-hand arrow to get out of the fraction. Now to convert this into a decimal, I can hit the math button, which is right below the green alpha button. And then option number 2 will convert it into a decimal. So hit enter, then hit enter one more time. So that converts to 0.125. Last one is practice with those absolute value bars. So again, we're going to go back to our graphing calculator. And to get the absolute value bars, you hit the math button and then hit the right-hand arrow to NUM. And then ABS stands for absolute value bars. So hit enter. And now I'm going to type in 4 minus 3 parenthesis 3, close the parentheses, and now hit enter. And that comes out to +5. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of how to use your graphing calculator. Feel free to reach out to your teacher if you have any additional questions.